Hello viewers, hope you're all doing good. Welcome to this video. My name is Nawaz and you're watching NXA, the Linux Guy channel. Right, so in this video I just wanted to show you how to use Elastic Load Balancer in AWS. So in my previous video I have shown you how to run a web server, how to launch EC2 instance and then log into it, configure the web server and serve a default web page. And then we also use the bootstrapping method. We added the commands to the user data field while launching the EC2 instance. So that's on its own, right? So that was a web server on its own. Suppose you want to create an additional web server or additional web servers for high availability. You need to have a load balancer in front of those backend web servers, right? So that's what we are going to try and do in this demonstration, but bear in mind this video I'm just going to introduce you to Elastic Load Balancer, how to configure it, but the agenda of this video is not high availability. I'm still going to use one backend web server and using Elastic Load Balancer to route the traffic to that web server. But in my future video, which is probably the next video, I'm going to use auto-scaling to auto-scale the backend web servers. To start with, I will be deploying 2 web servers, and then as the load goes high, auto-scaling kicks in and does all those magic. But for this video, I'm just going to install one ELB and configure it to send traffic to one web server, right? So let's go ahead to our EC2. Let's launch the instance quickly. So the steps are, we will launch an instance. We will create a load balancer and we will access that from the internet. That's the idea of this video, right? So here you can say I have nothing except one default security group. So if I go to launch instance, choose an AMI, I will use this AMI, instance type T2 micro, next. Configure instance, number of instances 1, network, this VPC, subnet, no preference, auto assign public IP. So when it comes to configure the Elastic Load Balancer, there are 2 options. We have internet facing load balancer and we have internal load balancer. So if you want to use internet facing load balancer, you need to assign the public IP to all the backend web servers, right? So only then you will be able to access the web server from the internet. And if you select the internal load balancer, then you don't need to have a public IP for the backend web servers, but again, you won't be able to access it from the internet. You will be able to access it internally within the VPC, but you won't be able to access it from the internet. So the idea of this video here is to create a web server, create a load balancer and access it from outside the VPC or from the internet, right? So I'm going to give a public IP here. Cool, default, advanced details, user data. I'm going to use the same bootstrap script, bin bash yum-y install httpd check config httpd on curl this link, which is 169, excuse me, which is let me move my mouse cursor, 169.254.169.254 slash latest metadata and instance ID, and redirect that to our www HTML and index.html file, start the service. Cool. So this is the bootstrap script that we will use. Excuse me. Next, add storage. I will use the default. Next, add tag. Let's say name is web server. Next, configure security group. Right, so I don't have any security group except one default, so I will not use that. I will create a new security group. Also, I have done all the commands there in the bootstrap script, so I will not open SSH. I will open port 80, which is for Apache. Security group name, let's say web server SG. right? So the port 80 is open, but the source here is wide open. Actually, when you configure or want to use a load balancer, the source here needs to be your Elastic load balancer, right? Because we are going to access the web server. Because we are not going to access the web server directly from the internet, we are going to go through the Elastic load balancer. So the source is actually needs to be ELB, right? So but for this demonstration, leave it wide open. So here we are configuring the security group for our backend web servers. So the only traffic that backend web servers will receive is from the Elastic load balancer. So you don't have to know the IP address of the Elastic load balancer because you won't get one. You will only have the DNS name for your ELB, but when we configure ELB, we will create a security group there again. And then we can add that security group here. But for this demonstration, leave it wide open because I told you this is not a perfect high availability solution, right? So we have opened port 80 for HTTP and we have left it wide open, right? Cool. Review and launch. Create a key pair name web server LB demo, download key pair, launch instances, view instances, so the instance is currently in the state of pending. This is the availability zone, so let's wait till this instance is ready. I will catch you after that. Alright, so the instance has been deployed successfully. Let's go ahead quickly. I will copy the public IP and let's quickly verify if it's serving the right web page. Cool, so it's serving the right web page, showing us the instance ID 05BE6 05BE6. Cool, so it's working correctly. The next thing, we will configure our load balancer. Go here to load balancers. So here as you can see, I have no load balancers. Create load balancer. So we basically have a three type of load balancer here. Application load balancer, which is for HTTP and HTTPS. Network load balancer for TCP, UDP, and classic load balancer, which is nothing, which is similar to your application load balancer, but it's considered as a previous generation. And your application load balancer is the latest generation, which has more features than your classic load balancer. So let's use application load balancer, create. Okay, so name of the load balancer, let's say web LB. So this is what I was talking about, internet facing and internal. So we will use internet facing. IP address type IPv4, load balancer protocol HTTP, port 80 is open for this load balancer. This is your listener. Availability zone, so this is my VPC. I will select every availability zone here. Let's do it this way. Although my instance is in this availability zone, I'm going to select every availability zone here. Next, configure security settings. So right now it says improve your load balancer security. Your load balancer is not using any secure listener. So right now we have only one listener, that is HTTP, which is listening on port 80. And this will be on different video. I will explain how to configure HTTPS using KMS, key management service, certificates, and so on. But for this video, let's keep it simple, just plain HTTP, right? So next, here I'm going to use the same security group which I have used for my backend server, which is the port 80 open to the wide public, right? So I'm going to use this. Next, configure routing. So configure routing, this is where you configure your routing. So when request comes to the load balancer, where should load balancer direct the request to? So here we need to create a target group, new target group. Let's say web targets, target type instance, protocol HTTP, port 80, health checks, protocol HTTP, path / and advanced health checks settings. So here are help for all these. You can go ahead and play with it. Right, so I will stick with the default settings. Next, register targets, and it's showing me there are currently no registered targets at the moment, and it's showing me my instance because I have selected the availability zone. If you remember, I have checked everything there, so it's showing me one instance which is deployed on this availability zone. So let's go ahead, select this and add to registered. So this instance is now registered under our load balancer. So now that's registered. Review and creating load balancer and everything, close. So here now you can see we have one load balancer and the state is provisioning. If I try to here you can say the name, the DNS name, so we can access it via this link. State is provisioning, this VPC and all the other informations. If we go to listeners, so we have one listener which is listening on port 80, right? So we have all the basic monitorings available here as well, right? So we have all the basic monitorings and tags, nothing fancy there. Integrated service, nothing fancy. So if go to the target groups, let's check what type of target group we have. So it will say we have one target group with the name is web targets, and if we check the targets here, you can say one registered targets, which is this instance on this availability zone, right? So the status is initial and it says target registration is in progress. So let's give it a few more minutes, a couple of minutes, so maybe it will change its status to ready or something like that. So it says at the moment that none of these availability zones contains a healthy target. Requests are being routed to all targets. So as soon as it will find a healthy target, it will deploy it, right? So let's wait till that. Let's give it a couple of more minutes, right? So let's go to health checks, protocol, HTTP, port, traffic port, everything looks cool, monitoring, all that basic monitoring, target. It's still registering the target, so I will catch you once it is successfully completed. So the instance status has been changed. It has changed to healthy. This target is currently passing target groups health check. So if we go to our load balancer, let's copy the DNS name of our load balancer, and if we try to access it, paste, enter. Cool, so our load balancer is working properly. It's sending the request or redirecting the request to the backend web servers. Cool. So that's how you create a load balancer, but as I have told you in the beginning of the video, this is not a proper setup. This is just to introduce you to the load balancer concepts, how to configure a load balancer, how to configure target groups, and how to register targets, and so on. In my next video, I will cover auto-scaling configuration, auto-scaling groups, scaling policies, and so on, and we can there create a truly highly available web server, right? So as usual, let's go ahead and clean up all our resources First I will go and delete this load balancer, delete, yes, delete. If you try to go and delete this target group, it will give you an error which will say that this target group is being used by a load balancer, right? So first delete the load balancer, then delete the target groups. Action, delete, yes. So the target groups has been deleted. Next we will delete the key pairs also. Key pairs, delete, yes, delete. Security group, you can't delete. If I try to delete this security group, you will see an error here. It says the following security group cannot be deleted. These are associated with one or more instances. Terminate the instance and associated blah blah blah. So let's go ahead and terminate the instance. Instances, choose the instance, action, instance state, terminate, yes, terminate, and it will also delete our EBS volume, right? So the instance is now being terminated. Let's wait a few minutes. Go to EC2 dashboard. Here you can say one volumes which is being used by this instance, and we also have one security group which is associated to this instance, right? So as soon as this instance is terminated, this volume will be gone and we will be able to delete the security group. Let's give it a couple more minutes. Running instances, if I go there, it says terminated, cool. If I go to my dashboard again, so everything is back except this security group. Let's go ahead and delete this. Action, delete security group, yes, delete. EC2 dashboard again, and here you can say everything is back as same when we started this video. So we are back to normal and we have one default security group, right? So that's all I wanted to show you in this video. Hope you learned something about the Elastic Load Balancer in AWS, and yeah, I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure you like it, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to this channel. See you guys in my next video. Take care. Bye bye.